One of the things I'm looking to bring to the next version of Abstract Builder is a bit more flexibility and variety in your objects that you create. At the moment you can create a line of tires like this, and you can add a bit of jiggle, and it's all very well and good. But if you wanted to move that line around a bit, you're going to have to do it manually one by one. Whilst Abstract Builder is still pretty good for doing that, there are some better ways that I've developed that I think you'll find pretty useful. I've developed this new tool called SObjects, a string of objects, and it allows you to basically draw in the same using the same sorts of tools that you do with your walls, but in this case it's doing a string of objects, and that string, if we look at what makes up that string of objects, you'll have a start pattern, an end pattern, and a middle pattern. And the middle pattern is repeated through the string of the object for the entire length of the object. To demonstrate that, I'll make that a bit more obvious. I'll just replace one of those objects, and we'll replace it with a white tire, and you can see there that the white tire is showing up in every fifth part of that wall. You can change the randomness for all of them, or turn the randomness off so it's a very neat wall, and obviously you can edit each of these pieces individually, so you could scale one piece up a little bit. Here I'll do it dramatically. So that's pretty good, and of course that's all sitting on top of the ground, so that as you go up hills and over rises or whatever, it just rises and falls along with it. So that's one use that you're gonna find fairly attractive, I think. The other use is with ripple strips. There's a ripple strip here that I've got. Let's put the right one down, or the more detailed one's probably better. And I'll just add another curve here, just roughly to begin with, and then we can use the align to track tool just to move all that in, line it to track. The good thing about this is that each and every individual point that is making up this sawtooth is in 3D, and it's being calculated, each point is calculated above the ground that it sits on, so no longer will these dig into the ground as they do with the current objects. You have to go to a bit of effort to try and align them currently so that they'll sit nicely on top of the ground. Well, in this case, each of these points, in fact this point here, I think it's 5 centimeters above the ground, and it's always 5 centimeters above the ground regardless of whether your ground is rising or falling away. Only if you had extreme ground that sort of broke through these parts of the ripple strip would you have any problem, but otherwise you don't. And if we go back to the properties there, we can do things like change the scale. Here I'll make it thinner, or you could do it smaller pieces as well. So you've got a lot of flexibility there. You can also put spacing in between them, so that there's spaced apart, or you can edit each of those individually by clicking on those. Another example of what you might use this for is if we create a new one. I'll just use a white wall. These at the moment are stuff that I've developed, and they're part of your XPack, but even though an object isn't in this, you can obviously replace it, as I've done already, and I'll just show you another example of that. So this time we're going to create a curve that goes around here, and we'll give it to the objects of this, and we'll replace this. This time it's going to be with the blue shed. There's obviously some bugs I need to work out. I can just tick that off, kill the randomness, rotate these sheds by 90 degrees, and they're starting to look a little bit more like pit stalls, and then after I'm happy with that, I can just pull this out as long as I want to. There we go, and we've got a roughly made row of pit stalls that are curving up and around a fairly tricky bend. And you know, to modify this or do this sort of thing in other 3D packages would just take you hours and hours and hours. So here it's done in just a minute, which is pretty cool. To show off the power of that a little bit more, I'll just get rid of that one, and we'll just jump down onto some flatter ground, and we'll stick in another one of these white walls again. Let's put it here, and this time we'll replace the object with something a little bit more complex. This is a object I found off the internet, and it's not my property, so I won't be sharing it around, but it's pretty cool all the same. Just a house. Again, we'll kill the randomness that was default in that tile wall, and we'll move this. You'll find that if you pull it out too far, two houses appear. You can kill that off by changing the scale there, so it'll just stretch to 200% of its standard width, and you can see that house is done pretty well. Digs into the ground there, so you can do things like adjust all the verts they're sitting off, but yeah, you're going to want fairly level ground to begin with anyway for a house. Your walls will benefit more from that sort of feature. But what is also cool with that is that that house is now following a path, so you can bend it to make a more interesting shape. All fairly easy and fairly intuitive, I think. You know, walls are pretty powerful in BTB, but this takes it to the next level, I hope, and looking forward to seeing what people come up with.